Well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, at least it is UK time here, and I'm absolutely delighted today. And I guess it's the brand that certainly a lot of UK retailers may be hearing probably for the first time, but certainly globally that is absolutely not the case. And that brand is none other than South African-based Expander. And I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Jory Bolfer, who's the managing director for Expander. And Jory and I, just before we started recording, are just regaling the fact that I think we've probably met in most corners of the world, to be honest, which is very much indicative of the length and breadth of market share that Expander currently enjoy globally. So without further ado, Jory, that's enough from me. Would you like to introduce yourself and give me a quick overview, please, of Expander, the brand?
Thank you for that, Dave, and always a pleasure talking to you. I was thinking just before this call that last week we spoke whilst I was in Canada, and today you're in the northern hemisphere and I'm in the southern hemisphere, and here we are still talking about criminals and the way they behave in our communities.
Absolutely.
Crazy. Yes, so thank you for that introduction. Expander has been around for 52 years now, born in 1974, sorry, 51 years, born in 1974 in South Africa, at a time where crime wasn't near the levels they are today. At a time in South Africa where political unrest was really the sort of the order of the day, and the then owners of Expander saw an opportunity to create a security barrier to a very small niche market at the time. And it would only be two or so decades later that the barrier has now become a necessity rather than a nice to have in the South African context. I mean, we're currently at levels of around 4,000 odd burglaries per day, which is astronomical, I think, in sort of a global context. What I can tell you is that backtracking 20 years, 30 years or so, the South African public, the South African retailer was slow to secure. And in that, they continuously gave the criminal or the criminal element opportunity to continue with these crimes, being burglaries, smash and grabs, the kind of things that retailers are facing in the UK today. So whilst I understand more than anybody that it's a grudge purchase and nobody really wants to buy a security barrier, it is our duty to create this or to reduce the opportunity rather for this criminal element to shoot roots in the community and to continuously plague the retailer with this sort of crime.
Because when you're describing to individuals around Expander, Jory, I mean, what do you say? Are they a shuttering company, a shuttering / grill company, a combination of other things? How would you best describe to anybody listening and watching this? How would you best describe Expander?
So we believe that Expander is we produce a deep basket of products, a variety of products. We have a product for every challenge in the market at every price point. So whilst we manufacture roller shutters, we manufacture vertical type grills, we also manufacture scissor type grills. And each product has been designed with a specific need or problem that it's countering in the market. So whilst our brand was born in South Africa, I think it's fair and safe to say that it's grown up sort of on the global stage. We have offices in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, a number of African countries, and of course we've been trading in the UK now for a number of years. Why this is important is not so much the fact that we're operating in these countries, but it's the data we gather from these countries. I can tell you this afternoon without a shadow of a doubt that all criminals operate in exactly the same fashion, whether they're in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or the UK. It's only the frequency that differs, the number of crimes that they commit, and also the level of violence that goes with it. So back to the South African story, I think crime originally started as a result of the gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? But as these elements sort of shoot root, it becomes a criminal network, almost an underworld, if you will, where the crime itself becomes the supply chain to an underground type business which sells goods at fair value to a willing buyer. And once that element settles, the depth of that corruption goes quite deep. Often the authorities are involved and it becomes very difficult to root them out. So from a global perspective, we gather this data, we know what best practice is across the world, we know the reason why retailers are slower to secure, residential owners are slower to secure, and we can package a deal that makes sense not only for the loss prevention guys, but for the financial team as well, where it makes sense to invest into this security barrier avenue.
Yes, absolutely. You touched on there about your international reach, Jory, and it's fair to say, isn't it? You know, much to your credit through your innovation, through your focus on that end user, that in locations such as the USA, such as Canada, you are very, very much an instantly recognizable brand to those risk professionals and end users. That's correct to say, isn't it?
Absolutely correct. Dave, we are partnered with most of the retail groups within US and Canada, where the expander barricade system almost forms part of the planning process. So if a new store is planned, expander is already part of that planning, and before the merchandise or the store is merchandised, the security barriers go in, security grills go in. So to give you an idea, I've got some statistics here from a time study, not a time study, a study that we've done in the US, where 59 stores of a particular chain were secured within a 12-month period. Now, preceding this 12 months, that chain recorded 95 break-ins to these 59 stores. Post the installation period, that reduced right to 12, and out of the 12, only 2 were successful. Now, it's worth mentioning that 95 the previous year has all been successful. So not only did we stop the loss from happening, we stopped the criminal from even trying in the first place. And I think that is so important, because security barriers or grills really should form part of a layered approach. So in this day and age, I'm often asked whether security grills are still relevant. We've got CCTV systems. We've got all these early warning systems that warn a retailer or a homeowner that danger is on its way. And often these systems also tell us that post the event, what had happened. So we can see who it was, but nothing actually prevents the actual crime from happening. If I may draw an analogy to the modern day vehicle, it's got airbags and you've got park distance control, and cars stop automatically before you hit the car in front of you. Even the headlights would curve with the road, right? But in all of this tech, we still have the humble safety belt in the car. And that is the best equation I think I can make to the security grill. It's the only physical restraint that will keep that element at bay for a period in time. I can't sit here this afternoon and tell you that our product is indestructible. If given the right amount of time and tools, anything can be breached. But I think this study of the 59 stores in the US kind of answers that question. A criminal has 60 seconds. 60 seconds to breach, 30 seconds at most to gather what they want and get out. If they're spending more than that time on breaching the perimeter, chances are that they just rather move on. Once the security is visible, they move on, they don't even try. And I think therein lies the beauty of an expander barricade. It's functional, it's effective, and equally important, it's bold and visible during non-trading hours. So when I was in Canada last week, we had a brief chat, and I mentioned to you that I went to one of the big retailers where we recently won a contract for securing self-checkouts. And I went into one of these stores. You know, you can never come home without chocolates for the children. I went into one of these stores to get some goodies before I leave. And when I got back to the office, the guy said, "And did you see they call them gates over there, the grills?" No, I didn't see them. And the point is, they were installed the week before, and even with my trained eye, I didn't know that they were installed there. So with this global data that we spoke about earlier, best practice, we also understand that retailers don't want their shoppers to feel like they're shopping in prison. So the expanding barricade or the expander barricade has been designed so that once it's in its closed position, it's bold, it's visible, and it sends a strong message. But when it's open, it is hinged so that it swings perpendicular with the window mullion, and the customer 9 times out of 10 won't even know that that storefront or that shop front carries security.
And that's a great point, Geordie, because we've met now on a number of occasions within the UK, and your immediate response to that UK market is that all too often retailers just simply default to that quite austere looking full metal roller shutter, which I think, if we were honest, very often is not commensurate with the risk. Almost on all occasions looks like it's some quasi Fort Knox, becomes a target for graffiti and various other elements that do nothing for the quality of the area. Whereby you've touched on the point there that the grill installation is this installation that provides that level of security, allows any passerby to still look into the store, and if it's a store that's incredibly proud of the planogramming prowess, then the customer can still see that even out of hours. And the key part of that is that then it's just moved away during those trading hours. So there's a number of real benefits to this grill approach. Why is it, Geordie, that you think in the UK that we have simply defaulted to this full metal roller shutters? And we're all aware of those areas where every single retailer out of ours, will engage with a roller shutter, and it makes it almost look like a ghost town out of ours.
So I think I need to answer that by just explaining why the UK first. So why are we in the UK market? So Expander has been there for about 8 years now through a distributor type model. I think partly our fault is we never really explained the benefits and the opportunity around this product, or what this product can achieve against the fight against crime, or in the fight against crime. So we have seen what's happening in the UK. We have seen this video happen in South Africa a number of years ago. And, what's a podcast without a controversial statement? So James Faber once said that crime will expand in accordance with the willingness of a community to put up with it. So from a retailer perspective in the UK, I want to say that the retailer has the duty, if you will, to reduce this opportunity for the criminal. They owe it to the communities that supported them and that they served for so many years. You see, because once this element takes hold in a community, it's very difficult to get rid of it. So why are retailers slow to secure? I think partly because of the cost. This roller shutter that you spoke about now could become expensive, not just as an on-cost, immediate cost when you install it. There's planning permission involved in most cases, especially sort of high street shopping. It creates a bit of a problem for the police force, because if there is an alarm, they can't see into the store. They don't know if something is actually happening. Or even worse, if there's a fire alarm, the fire brigade can't see inside the store with a solid curtain. And I think you touched on it earlier. It also becomes on the outside for the criminal element, or even just the youngsters. Youngsters don't always have things to do with their hands, and that's where they will take this as a big graffiti canvas. That also in itself creates a problem for communities, because it makes the area look dilapidated. So the grill in the UK hasn't been as successful because the applications for it hasn't been explained properly. And I think that is the drive now, is we're explaining that this product, although it looks different to anything else on the market, is actually a far better option, a cost-effective option, and it ticks all these boxes in terms of no planning approval required. It ticks the box for the police force, and it most definitely ticks a box for the fire brigade and the retailer, in that the shopper ultimately does not feel like they're shopping in a prison, because during operating hours, it's simply not visible.
And I think we were saying, Jory, again in an earlier conversation, that one of my last dealings with a former employer as regards a full metal shutter was unfortunately forced to be in a position where I was signing off out of hours man guarding because the shutter had developed a fault, and the leading time to actually correct that was absolutely ridiculous. It was it was stretching into around about a 2 week period. I guess really another inherent beauty of that grill approach is that whilst the research and development that sits behind it is a technical, technically heavyweight in terms of what you guys do from an R&D perspective, in terms of moving parts, motors, electrics, and all these other things that can and do go wrong. This is again, isn't it, one of the real advantages of that shutter approach and that grill approach, rather, because it's just beautifully simplistic, isn't it, in terms of operation and maintenance.
Completely maintenance free. Once it's installed, the product is there for life. Up until the event that the product is needed, it might get some damage in a attempted breach, at which point we can replace it or repair it. But in essence, it is a completely maintenance free product. So maybe this is an opportunity just to explain the barricade system a bit better. So in the UK, retailers and homeowners would be more afraid with the tracked security system. So it's a security grille with vertical uprights and then cross braces that makes the whole operation slide. This normally requires a top and a bottom track, and it's fixed on either end. But when this grille is then in its open position or retracted position, there's always what's called a stack or a piece on the side that would sit or protrude into the opening. This is normally between 15 and 20% of the opening size. So back to the earlier comment where a retailer that had installed that would not simply be able to say it's not there, because the customer will notice it. There's a track in the way, or the track needs to be lifted, and this could be quite unsightly, really. If you think about the mechanics of a traditional type grille with these vertical uprights, if you manage to breach through the scissor-like braces that connects all these uprights together, these two parts will simply part to either side and you will gain entry. The barricade system is completely different in the sense that it does not have a top and a bottom track. It was designed specifically without those tracks to give if we can call it a net of metal, the opportunity to dissipate energy. So the more it's attacked, the more the net will move, but not necessarily give way. The other key point is that it's not a vertical upright, but it runs diagonally. So each upright is at least anchored to 12 other uprights. So if a criminal manages to eliminate one anchoring point, it is still anchored at 11 others. The key there is, and what often confuses even the professional, is which points to loosen to gain entry, as they are all interconnected. And this often would confuse a criminal to the extent where the time lapse is just too great that they simply move on. In fact, after this, I think we must drop in a link here of a bicycle shop in the UK that was ram raided through a roller shutter, and where the roller shutter curtain actually became the force that pushed out the glass and the door behind it. And very, very similar video where a expander barricade was installed on the inside of the glass. The vehicle rammed it in similar fashion, but this metal grille net, if you will, had stopped that vehicle from protruding into the shop, and it also stopped the then criminals trying to gain entry into the shop. So the loss was zero, which is exactly what this product is designed to do. There's a lot of IP in it, which I won't go into now, but a lot of people have tried to copy it, and really the key to this is how we anchor and fix these diagonal uprights together. Therein lies its strength, and that took a good couple of years to develop in South Africa, but perfected, like I said earlier, sort of on the global playground.
And I think that's a great point, Jory, because to the layperson, if you imagine now, I'm going to show some imagery as part of this podcast of these the grills in action. If you imagine now that the grill was engaged, you could go up to that, and it would start to distort, even under the the pressure of one hand. But that you mentioned is a fundamental part of the design, isn't it? Because it's that distortion that allows that grill installation to, withstand greater and greater levels of force, even levels of force, on occasion we've seen, as you said, applied from motor vehicles. And it's that whole distortion of what is that large net that allows it to withstand any form of breach, isn't it? Which I think is just the key part of it. It's wrong. It's quite, I guess what I'm trying to say is quite wrong to equate that to being a sign of weakness. Well, it moves, and we're used to with these grills that are immovable and make that resounding thud if you were to hit them, whereas this product is designed to actually distort but yet withstand.
In fact, exactly what you said now is what every competitor of ours would say worldwide. Because it's not anchored top and bottom, because it moves, it can't be strong, right? And I suggest that the evidence suggests the complete opposite. I've got proof of this study that indicates just how effective this product has been elsewhere in the world. And this video that you'll see post this podcast will also prove to you just how phenomenally strong this product is. And if I may now, and I know the video is not playing yet, but take note of the time delay. So on the first one, it's within 60 seconds in and out with merchandise. In the second one, it's no entry after 2 attempts within the 60-second range. Those criminals simply moved on. And therein lies, sadly, in this specific scenario, the store still had damage, still had to replace all the glass windows. But ultimately, that's why we have insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. So come on, Jordan, because we know that UK retailers are very, very careful with what they tend to spend. So, on average, then, if they were going to procure through Expander, how long would a grill last? How about that one? There's a loaded question. How long would I expect as an end user for that grill to last?
Have grills installed for 50 years. So there's a lot of things that would obviously influence the time frame. It's one of them would certainly not be use. It's not the amount of times it opens and closes. What would affect it is obviously the atmospheric conditions, the moisture. Is it in constant rain? Because whilst the product is certainly pre-treated against rust and corrosion, ultimately it is manufactured from steel. Steel naturally oxidizes. So we obviously have rust guarantees on the product, but I can tell you that we have product in operation for 50 years today that works the way it was intended when it was installed. The only consumable on this product would potentially be a lock, and the locks would be replaced more often than not because people lose keys. We also have key-alike solutions for retailers where we could key alike all the locks. We can even key it to the storefront lock to make sure that it's one set of keys for a store manager, store owner that needs to open and close in the morning and evening.
Excellent. And whilst there's a limited range of spurs, if you want, that would ever be required for an installation, I'm right in saying, aren't I, Jory, that whole spurs, whole fresh installations can all be equipped from the UK. That's correct, isn't it? So it's not a case of having to wait for something to arrive from some far-flung destination. Everything's on the shelf in a number of UK locations.
Security is a now thing. We firmly believe security is now thing. And with the reactive nature, people buy security barriers, it's normally post an incident. So if you had an incident today, we will be there today or tomorrow to secure that opening. One thing I have to say, Dave, whether it's in South Africa or New Zealand or Canada or the UK, my team and I are extremely passionate about our community's safety, these communities that we serve. But we are somewhat fanatical about our approach to service. And we understand more than most that grill is not there because you had money in your pocket and you didn't know what to do with it. It is there to fulfill a very specific need. So we are there, if not today, tomorrow. Obviously, the UK is a big place in terms of, distances, although it's small, everything takes 2 hours. So we have a network of dealers across the country. Given the distances and all of that, our aim will always be to be secure or to have a premises secure within 48 hours. All manufactured in the UK, in stock in the UK, supplied out of the UK.
Excellent. And I know we've spoken about this before, that whole speed of installation. So if I'm a retailer that comes to you on a Monday with a proposal, we've got a particular problem statement, an element of a site needs to be secured ASAP. What type of timescales am I looking at, Jory? So it's Monday, I need something doing ASAP. When could an installation be affected?
If a site survey is required, we will do that on the same day or the next. At the same time, we can prepare the product. So again, back to 48 hours, that's our promise to you. Depending on where it is in the UK, we will have the product ready and installed. In fact, we often get to store before the guys with the timber boards can come and board up the holes, and we would have those secured already.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you. So we've spoken about that concept of securing, that front entrance way, those front store windows, but we know that the product's being used for so much more than that. Particularly, Jory, we've seen the product increasingly used to keep locations of stores effectively out of bounds for a certain period or for longer durations. Could you tell anybody, again, listen to this, watching this, about that modular design and how, in essence, you can fix one of these grills to a number of configurations because of its fundamental design?
Yes, absolutely. So it is a modular design. Store front or shop front security, we would work in accordance with the mullions. But let's say we are in an airport environment in duty free where you need to cordon off an area that should be out of bounds at certain trading times. These barricades are also mountable on a trolley system, where you can have 52 meters of this, 100 meters. The sky is really the limit as you can join all of these together. For the health and safety people, all of these would have a chute bolt system into the floor, making sure that they're secure. If there is a bulkhead that it can secure to at the top, that can also happen. But the product is very versatile in the sense that it acts as access control. It can work as an access control barrier. It can work as a shop front security barrier. And I know in the inner cities we also have issues with rough sleepers, where this is often used in the front of a shop where there's an alcove sort of entrance where people sleep at night. So we understand and we have empathy for that. However, it puts a burden on the shopkeeper, the shop manager, often female employees, that needs to go in there in the morning and clear that space so that they can start trading. This barrier installed on that entrance also stops that from happening.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's probably fair to say I first met members of your UK team when I actually commissioned an installation like that. And this is where store colleagues were being frequently met with quite unfortunately abusive rough sleepers, who is classic example of, you've got the storefront, you've got a little nook and cranny that affords protection from severe weather. I understand that, and like you say, we empathise with all of that. But when it gets to a stage where it's actually affecting the safety of colleagues, then something needs to be done. And that was, it's fair to say, that was a simple expander solution of that recessed grill that then just came straight across outside of hours, and it solved the problem overnight.
Excellent. And I would imagine that part of the inner city was better off thereafter, because that person would have had to move on to a shelter or to get help elsewhere, because you've taken away the opportunity for him in that scenario. And that really comes back to that opportunity we spoke about earlier. Retailers, shopkeepers has a responsibility to the communities that support them to make sure that the area stays safe. And I understand more than most why retailers and people in general are slow to secure, slow to put up barriers, because it is traditionally costly. However, I'm 100% convinced that with the data we have globally and the design of our product, it's not only cost effective, it's visible, it's bold, and it will do exactly what we say it will do for that 90-second period.
Excellent, Jory. Couple of myth busting questions from me, and hopefully some compelling answers from yourself. Okay, so I think we've covered this one, Geordie. So we talk about, aren't grills fundamentally weaker than a shutter? What would you say to anybody watching this who would make that statement?
The short answer is no. I think there is a product for every purpose. A roller shutter, certainly a roll down shutter, certainly has a purpose in the marketplace. But for majority of storefronts, I don't believe that a roller shutter is necessary or adequate for that matter, as this video would show a little bit later.
Excellent, thank you. Next question then, I work either with a demanding local authority or increasingly with demanding landlords who requires a whole series of permission for that roller shutter type installation, and on many occasions permission will actually be refused. Tell me why a grill would actually manage to usurp that type of challenge.
I think I made this joke with you before, but once I was involved with with planning permission, and back then I had hair. So after that process, this is what I look like. In all fairness, though, I understand the purpose of planning permission, and it's important for the heritage of the UK. Especially you've got such history-rich buildings, and the architecture is just next level. These products are mostly 99% of the time installed inside where no planning permission is then required. Because they are open during the day and they swing perpendicular with the window mullions, it also doesn't distract from the look and feel of the building, the way it presents itself, nor does it distract from you mentioned it earlier, the retailer's display. I mean, everything in there looks normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the final question for me as well on the Q&A piece is that you mentioned, and you've touched on it there are products that are available if I just want to place out of bounds on a temporary basis a particular location within a store.
Absolutely. The barricade or the expanding barrier system would work there. These are normally trolley based, so you can wheel them in, expand them, lock them in place, and when you no longer require them, unlock them, bunch them up, and take them away into storage.
Okay. So, Jody, so I know the answer to this one, but other people won't who are listening to this. What's your vision for UK then? Expander in UK retail. Where are you looking to push it, please?
So maybe I must just answer that question first with our brand ethos. Expander, for 50 years really, our ethos today is the same as it's been back then, and that is that our purpose far exceeds profits. We believe in a safer world. Excuse me. So the very same ethos we have in South Africa, we have in Canada, we have in the US and Australia and New Zealand, as well as the UK. And that is that we bring a product to market that's A, affordable, that B, has global influence in the sense that best practice worldwide has gone into the design of this product, and that we know this product is going to do what we said it will do. And the UK is in an interesting period at the moment where I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that we have seen more inquiries both on retail and residential side of requiring security grills because crime is becoming an issue. And we've seen this in other countries before, and the time to act is now to reduce these opportunities to make sure that these criminal networks don't shoot root and stay and become a far bigger part of society and a far bigger problem to society. So our vision for the UK is really that, is we want to, like everywhere else in the world, make a difference to everyday people, everyday citizens, to shopkeepers, to retailers alike, to make sure that when they lock up at night, Expander is on guard with or part of their layered security approach, and we can nip this crime, before it spirals further.
And that's an excellent summary. So thank you very much, Jory. And I think finally then, Jory, I think what you are asking for, I know again from previous conversations, are that those problem statements from UK retailers where they believe that there is a requirement for some form of physical barrier. And really, Jory, the opportunity to address those problem statements and to show people just what Expander can do in terms of affording that additional layer of physical security.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. Dave, I didn't tell you, but this is near to my heart. It's personal for me. My family and I were victim to crime in the late 90s. And that night I realized the importance of a security barrier, a security grill, as part of a layered security approach. My story might have been very different today had we have the insight back then to secure, which we didn't, and it has had a long-lasting sort of effect on my life post that incident. So we are singing this tune, we are telling everybody that we are passionate about security, and the reason we are passionate about, I personally am passionate about security, is because I got very personal dealings with it. I was affected by it, and I know that our product makes a difference. So when I put my head on the pillow at night, I know that I can sleep sound knowing that the product will do exactly what we said it would.
Jory, I think that's a really sobering thought to end the podcast on. Thank you very much. And I think your passion comes across there for everybody to recognise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it. We talk again soon.
Yes, thank you.